Okay, guys, so we are going to walk through lesson 8-6, which is law of sines. Your law of sines are one of those things that we should have covered in the trigonometry chapter, except that, it's not state tested, and that's what we focused on. And now that the state test is kaputs and, we're doing this remotely, we're going to go ahead and cover it. Now, don't just ignore it because we're doing it at the end of the year. Law of sines comes back in Algebra 2 and in pre-calc. So this is a necessary component of geometry that the state, doesn't think is necessary. Makes perfect sense. Your law of sines is really straightforward. What you're doing is you're setting up proportions, and this solves for the missing side of a triangle. Not a right triangle, not like everything else that we have to do with trig. This is just solving for the missing side of a triangle. So we have practiced using trigonomic ratios to find side lengths and angle measures in right triangles. The law of sines shows the proportional relationship between angles and their opposite sides. It can be used to find side lengths and angle measurements for any triangle. If you're looking at this triangle over here, trying to get everything in the picture, given triangle ABC, the sine of angle A over side A, is proportional to the sine of angle B over side B. And then it sets up a third one just to tell you that that's also proportional to the sine of angle C over side C. So when you set up a proportion, you're going to have two fractions cross multiply and divide. This is just showing you that all three sides are in fact proportional. So starting right into this, make sure your calculator is in degrees. That's really important. It does not tell you where to round, so over here I made a note, round to the nearest tenth, please. So directions, use the law of sines to set up a proportion and solve for x. So what I do personally is I go through and I sort out, okay, what angle side pair am I given? Meaning the angle on the opposite side. Well, if you look, you're given 35 degrees right here. What side is the opposite of that? You go across 12. So I always set up that proportion first, just strictly out of habit. So sine of 35 over 12 equals, what are you looking for? You're looking for x. What angle is across from x? Well, it's 71. So sine of 71 over x. So again, what you're given, angle over side, equals what you're looking for, angle over side. From here, you cross multiply. So x times sine of 35 equals 12 times the sine of 71. Now, here's where you have some options. You can go ahead and find this decimal, but again, if you find a decimal this early on, you're going to be rounding. What happens when we round and we round and we round and we round? We get a really skewed answer. So it's better to leave it in this format. So what you're going to do, because you're solving for x, right? What's the opposite of multiplying by sine of 35? Dividing by it. So you're going to divide both sides by sine of 35. It cancels on this side, and you're left with 12 times the sine of 71 all over, sorry, there was another one of those hiccups, sine of 35. And I've got that written for you right here. If you are doing this on a phone calculator, your life is about to get truly difficult in the next couple of days. It would be very much worth it to find a scientific calculator instead of a cell phone. Because if you're doing a cell phone, you're going to have to do the sine of 71, hit enter, multiply by 12, hit enter, divide by the sine of 35, then hit enter, all to get this 19.8. Occasionally, some cell phones, you have to enter 71 first and then sine, so do some practicing with that. Otherwise, if you've got your handy dandy graphing calculator with you, which I'm really hoping you do, you hit your alpha y equals 1, you hit 12, you hit sine 71, end your parentheses, arrow down, hit sine of 35, hit enter, and you get 19.78. We're rounding to the 10th, so 19.8. So again, I'm really hoping you have a calculator at home and you're not trying to stumble through this on a cell phone. So number 2, so go with what you're given first. I know I'm given the side 5. What angle is across from that? 18. So I know that's my side angle pair. So I'm going to do sine of 18 over 5 equals, what am I looking for? I am looking for x. What angle is directly across from x? 114. So sine of 114 over x, then I'm going to cross multiply. Again, out of habit, I always end up putting my x on the left. So x times the sine of 18 equals 5 times the sine of 114. What is the opposite of multiplying by sine of 18? Dividing by sine of 18. So you divide on both sides, it crosses out over here, carries over here. You type this into the calculator, you get 14.8. So these are, for the most part, really repetitive. So we are going to skip number 3 because number 3 is the same as numbers 1 and 2. Number 4 is almost the same. What I do need you to take note of is if you look, what side angle pair are you given? So you're given 27. Go directly across, you're given the angle of 96 degrees. That's nice and easy. So sine of 96 over 27 equals, we are looking for this side right here, go across. You're missing that angle. Well, how do you find the missing angle of a triangle? Well, you subtract from 180. So 180 minus your 96 minus your 53, and that gives us 31 degrees. So that 31 degrees is that angle, so sine of 31 over x. So in these notes, anytime you see me have a bubble, that means we had to find that angle by subtracting everything from 180. So just use that as a key. But anywho, x times the sine of 96 equals 27 times the sine of 31. Divide by your sine of 96. And you get 14.0. So the way these are set up, really not complicated. It's, again, very repetitive. Set up your fraction, cross multiply. But it definitely, at least in my opinion, helps. All right, I'm given this 15. Go directly across. I'm given 29. So sine of 29 over 15 equals, what am I looking for? I'm looking for x. So go across. That's my angle. I'm missing that angle. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do, 180 minus 103 minus 29, and I get 48 degrees. And then I set it up and I cross multiply and I divide by sine of 29 and I get 23.0. And number 6 is, the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and skip it. Now, let's see, number 7, looking at number 7. Number 7's the same thing. I think we can skip it. Number 8 is the same thing. I think we can skip it. And again, all of these are worked out for you. And it's setting up a proportion. It is cross-multiplying, dividing by what's attached to the x, and correctly inputting it into your calculator. Now, this next set, completely different. You're finding angle measures instead of sides. If you remember to find an angle, you use the inverse. And since we're dealing with sine, we're going to be dealing a lot with, inverse sine. Woohoo! And again, round to the nearest 10. So, sorry, didn't mean to move it that much on you. We're going to kind of start the same way, meaning find your angle side pair. So I'm given this side, I'm given that 14. I'm given 77. So sine of 77 over 14 equals. Now, if you look, I'm given this and I'm missing this. So I'm going to set it up sine of x over 9. Go ahead and cross multiply. And again, out of habit, I always put my variable on the left. So, and I kind of have crossed that out, sorry. 14 times the sine of x equals 9 times the sine of 77. Now, our x is with the sine, so we need to get rid of this 14. The opposite of multiplying by 14 is dividing. So we divide both sides by 14. That gives us this. So I'm looking at sine of x equals this expression. If you remember, to find an angle, I take the inverse sine of my fraction. So inverse sine of 9 times the sine of 77 divided by 14. Again, if you are using a cell phone, that is going to get really ugly. to the point where you might have to do sine of 77, enter, times 9, enter, divided by 14, enter. Get that decimal, round it, then do the inverse sine. If you can type that all in your phone calculator and get the right answer, I'm thoroughly impressed with you. Anywho, you get 38.8. So number 10, find your angle side pair. Well, my angle I'm given is 126, go directly across 31. So sine of 126 over 31 equals, I'm looking for x, I'm looking for angle x, go directly across, and that's 15. So sine of x over 15. Again, we are cross multiplying, so 31 times the sine of x equals 15 times the sine of 126. From here, to get sine of x by itself, I divide by 31, so these end up canceling. And I have to take the inverse sine of this fraction, so 15 times the sine of 126 over 31, and that gives me 23.0, sorry. The rest of these follow that same exact pattern. I'm going to do one more with you, just, to give you some practice. So we will do 11. And the reason I'm only doing one more, you follow the same steps every single time, guys. Every single time. You're going to set it up, cross multiply. If you're finding an angle, you're going to do inverse sine. If you're finding a side, you're just going to cross multiply and go. So number 11, my side angle pair. I'm given 61 degrees here. Go directly across. That's 24. So sine of 61 over 24 equals, I'm given angle x here. Directly across from that is 21. So sine of x over 21. Go ahead and cross multiply. 24 times the sine of x equals 21 times the sine of 61. To get that sine of x by itself, you divide by 24 on both sides. These cancel. To get our angle, we take the inverse of that fraction. So inverse of that fraction gives us 49.9. Let me know if you have any questions, guys, okay?